Guys, I wanted to mention, since winter is coming on here, especially for beginners, but even not for beginners, any of us that have new plants that we aren't familiar with going into a different season. So maybe we've had them all summer long, maybe we've had them all winter, but not vice versa. Having a moisture meter to use is really helpful, because it's, especially if you have top dressing, because it's really, for these plants without top dressing, the little finger check is great, you can poke it down, but for plants that you want to keep kind of halfway nice with top dressing, it's a little bit difficult, especially when seasons are changing. Because we all get into ruts and habits, and we know, oh, I water it about twice a week in the summer, and then everything changes in the winter, and suddenly everything is staying wet for a lot longer, and it's hard to determine, does it need a drink or does it not sometimes? And so with a lovely little moisture meter, you can quickly know if, and it's nothing exact, but it gives you an idea. This guy is, moist. He's not dry at all. Whereas, let's go over here back to this lovely little guy here. If I can get him down in the dirt. There we go. And we're on dry there, as you can see. Not quite as dry as you can get, but just about. And with shallower pots, sometimes it's not quite as accurate, but what is accurate is that if it says it's wet, and that's really what you're concerned about with succulents. Got a sad little nepenthes here. I can't get that into its soil with one hand. Sorry, I got a little etiolated nepenthes that I'm nursing there. That's a little bit sad, but these guys are, $10 or under, and especially with the changing seasons and pot sizes, if you've repotted, because it's so easy to overwater something if you get into a really good habit and then you pot it up a size and you forget how much extra soil that adds and how much more moisture that is going to add. And it's really easy to overwater and not realize it. This guy, as you can see, is dry but has a little bit of moisture in him. Lovely little string of pearls. All of the little flower stems are dying back here. I talked about that in another video, how they would eventually just die back and you wouldn't even know that they had sprouted out like that, and that's what they're doing. Just some of them are still blooming here. Anyways, I digress. So I highly recommend having a moisture meter. This one has a pH meter on it as well, which, I stabbed a leaf here. My silver dollar plant here is hiding behind there. It has a pH meter as well, which I need for a couple really weird plants that have some special pH needs that I have that aren't succulents. And so I like to be able to check that every once in a while, but you can get just a plain moisture meter. I like the ones that have two prongs, which that usually has to be both. It usually has to be the moisture and the pH. To have the two prong, it just seems like they last a little bit longer, but that's been, my experience only, and it may have been a complete coincidence. If you have any suspicions about them, stick it in some water, and if it doesn't say it's really moist, then it's not working, or stick it in some soil that is bone dry, and get an idea to make sure that it is working. But while I don't use it very often, or almost at all in the summer, once in a while in the winter I use it, and it is just extremely helpful, especially for some of my plants that just don't like to get dry at all, and then some of them that like to be really dry, especially for things that have top dressings, like I said, because it's just more difficult. First off, the water doesn't evaporate off as much when you have the top dressings. It can hold it in a little bit, and second off, you just can't see the dirt. So if you don't have one of these going into winter, I would suggest it. If you have a lot of plants. If you have mostly small plants, You know, these size, it's not as advantageous for these size. These ones are a bit easier to just kind of tell, but when you start getting into a little bit larger and then way larger plants, it can be really helpful. At least that's what I've found. Alrighty, you guys, I hope that helps you, and happy growing!